Hello, everyone. I'm Robyn Grable, the founder of Talents Ascend and the Ascend Collective, and your host for Ascending Beyond Barriers. Welcome. Ascending Beyond Barriers is an inspiring podcast dedicated to showcasing the remarkable journeys of small business founders who have faced and overcome significant challenges on their path to success. Each episode delves into the personal stories of entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds, highlighting their unique experiences, struggles, and triumphs. Today we welcome Shawn Walsh, who is the founder and co-host of Vet SOS podcast. The show features information and resources about veteran support organizations and key personnel in the veteran support community. Shawn is a retired U.S. Army veteran with over 20 years of experience as an intelligence professional. Shawn holds several advanced degrees, including a master's degree in administrative leadership from the University of Oklahoma, and is a member of the Maxwell Leadership Team. He is also a certified resiliency trainer who lives in Jacksonville, Florida, with his wife and their 2 children. Welcome, Shawn.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I'm real excited to be here.
Oh, this is so great for me. So just a few things, I was stationed in Jacksonville, as you may know. So Jacksonville holds a very special place in my heart as well. So are you originally from there?
So not really. I'm a Navy brat, so I've always been a Florida resident. But just haven't lived in Florida very much. My parents retired over in Pensacola, so
Okay.
And when it all came down to it, we decided to move here. And if nothing else, I can be the person that keeps an eye on Neela for you down here in Jacksonville.
Exactly. Awesome. Yeah. So I was stationed there, and then I lived there after I got out of the Navy. So again, near and dear to my heart. So, all right, let's get into this. Well, I first have to ask, as I'm sure you get it all the time, intelligence professional in the Army. Tell us about that, a little bit about that, because I really want to dig into Vet SOS and why you're doing what you're doing today. But tell us a little bit about your experience in the Army.
No military intelligence jokes.
I was being nice. I was trying not to. I was holding back.
Oh man, I had a sergeant major who told me, he asked me one day, "Do you know what all the red on the MI crest is for?" I'm like, "No, sergeant major." He goes, "All the blood you guys have spilt from bad intel." I'm like,
Oh,
"Okay,
no.
thanks." Yeah, I mean, it was, we'll call it a love-hate relationship at times, right? So
Absolutely.
there's great things. I remember I made some great friends, and we lived in some great places overseas and things like that. So a lot of upsides. I was able to pursue education as well, and
Sure.
found some things I really love doing. And doing the intel work, was really stimulating. Especially when you're deployed, trying to provide the warfighter with the actionable intelligence and things like that. So I mean, there's a ton of things that I absolutely loved about it, and of course, as you move up through the ranks, becoming a senior NCO, you don't do as much intel work or any sometimes,
Right.
but you get to lead troops, and that's as good as it gets, really, in my book. I loved having soldiers and going through that process, trying to mold them and build them into the next set of leaders. And
Absolutely. And that's probably that's what started Vet SOS. So did you have a good transition? Is that what really was the catalyst, other than, your passion for leading and guiding and helping? Well, how did Vet SOS come about?
So I had a mentor outside the military world, who, when I started my transition, I started getting into LinkedIn, doing all the videos and trying different things. And he reached out one day. He's like, "Dude, you need to start a podcast." I'm like, "No, I don't." He's like, "No, you do." And he kept pushing me, and I'm so glad he did.
Sure.
Trevor Houston was his name, or is his name. And he is actually co-host with my co-founder and original co-host, Mark Elder. They've been running the Who You Know show in Dallas, Texas for several years.
Nice.
And so Mark came on board and helped me get this going. And, the thing is, we started about 6 months into the transition process for me.
Okay.
And it turned out to be a huge blessing, because I was able to have a great transition, because I was hearing all the horror stories, all those things of what not to do.
Awesome.
And learning from all these great people in our community.
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate, and the podcast has been a huge blessing for me.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that, because I think there's a key thing that you said in there is that he pushed you. So he pushed you to do this. So really you're starting, I mean, it's basically a business, running a podcast and what you're
Mhm.
trying to do. So what was your hesitation? Why didn't you want to do it? What was the challenge you thought you were going to face in trying to start a podcast?
Honestly, it just wasn't something on my radar.
Okay.
It wasn't something I was even given a thought to. Being Intel my whole career, I was very anti social media.
Hmm.
So I didn't really have
Sure.
much social media going either at the time.
Yeah.
And so one thing I did know is if you're going to do a podcast, social media goes hand in hand. You're going to have to get involved in
Absolutely.
that and do all that. So um, I don't know. I mean, if there was hesitation, that's probably what it was, knowing that I'd have to get more into social media.
Okay.
Um, but it really was just one of those things that wasn't on my radar and list of things I wanted to do. But I'm glad he pushed me to do it, and that's what a good mentor does, right? That he
Absolutely.
saw potential, he saw an avenue, and he really pushed me to move forward with it. I'm so happy he did.
Yeah. Well, truly a gift, because the Vet SOS podcast is definitely an amazing thing. You meant there's 40,000 veteran service organizations, probably more than that, across the US. How did you decide that that's the focus you wanted to take with the podcast? Like, how was that, did you say, oh my gosh, there's so many, because I'm in transition. I'm being bombarded by all of these things. How did that become your focus?
That really was it. And, at that point, I was just sort of drinking from the fire hose, learning about all these different organizations that are out there and trying to figure out which one am I going to do.
Yeah.
And as we got to talking about this idea of doing a podcast, Trevor had some ideas for podcasts, and I was like, those aren't really me, And so one day walking the dogs, it just sort of hit me. I'm like, well, what if we focus on this? And I started doing some research, and
Nice.
there weren't really a whole lot of podcasts out there that solely focused on transition. There's a
Okay.
lot of veteran ones out there that deal with transition, talk transition, but also have other things. And so we made the decision to move forward and really just try to stay focused on that military transition space.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a correlation between gathering military intelligence and being responsible for lives, because really that's what it comes down to? And then now it's very similar to me. It's a very similar track where you're gathering all this information about these veteran service organizations and providing that out to veterans who are transitioning. And there's a definite correlation there. What have you found to be the struggle in running a podcast?
Well, I will agree that there's definitely a correlation because I like to do research. So the
Okay.
researching organizations, finding new organizations, maybe finding ones that a lot of people don't know about. Um,
Yeah.
but then I would also say that the NCO in me, that non-commissioned officer, and wanting to help and train your troops and get them ready and set them up for success, that part's still with you. It's ingrained in you.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that we're out here trying to educate the next group to let them have a good transition.
Yeah.
Um, the hardest thing, honestly, is getting everybody's information.
Okay.
There are multiple days where, like the day before recording, I'm still waiting on a bio or a photo or whatever, so I can get my show notes together and ready for the show.
Yeah.
That really is the hardest part of the whole thing, and so people understand. I have a regular 9 to 5 job,
Mm.
and I got kids that are still, in school and,
Yeah.
so I got family duties and, as a retiree, I definitely want to give more to my family because I know I neglected them. And, so
Yeah.
I tried to make this as streamlined as possible. And
Sure.
so everything we do with it, we try to make it as easy as possible. So we record 5 to 6 episodes in one day. The
Wow.
next day, they're all edited, all the show notes are done, everything's ready to go. They're uploaded to everything. So, I'm not spending every week working on episodes and things like that. It's all done in one weekend,
Yeah. Wow.
so that I can, spend the time with my family and
Yep.
go to work and, do those types of things. And so we were very deliberate in the way we set it up.
Okay. I think that's a great point for entrepreneurs out there, running a podcast or whatever business that you're in, because we can get really stressed about running a small business and running a business. And we don't think about our families and the time we're taking away from our families. So great, congratulations to you for making that a priority and making sure that you can, function in that regard. And hey, if somebody misses getting you their information, they miss out, right? I mean, it's not on you. So that's
But
great.
we've had to.
I bet, but just like any business, if you don't get what you need, you've got to move on. You've got
Yeah.
to do what you need to do for the business, right?
Hmm.
So tell us about some of the successes and the greatest stories you've heard, the greatest, maybe some organizations that you want to talk about, but just what have been some of your, not challenges, but, fun things or good things that have come out of doing the podcast.
One, like when we started, I had done so many different transition programs because I was fortunate. I was in a excess position, so I was afforded a lot of time. So I did a lot of transition programs, and I was very active with Veterati when it was around, and so initially I was able to call on all those programs that I had attended and
Mm,
bring people on to be the guests and everything. So I was very fortunate in our starting point being able to actually have guests lined up, and
that's awesome.
through the 2.5 years that we've been doing this, though, the stories are just absolutely amazing.
I bet.
um, Whether they're a transition story or someone who's never been in the military and they just love supporting the veteran community. Like one of my favorites to this day, and it gives me chills every time I think about it, is the one we did with Kristen Christie, the co-founder of 988. I mean,
Wow. Oh,
her
gosh.
story of resiliency is so powerful, and what she went through, and
Yeah.
how she continues to give back and try to help the next generation. It's just super powerful. And we brought on an organization that doesn't fit the military transition, but it's your final transition, and that's Veterans
Mm.
Last Patrol.
Oh, gosh.
Um,
Yeah.
where they work with hospice, and they do ceremonies with the veterans that are in hospice, and their mission is just so beautiful.
I
And
know.
it actually turned out to be my most listened to episode in 2024,
Wow.
which I'm very proud about. I learned that yesterday, and
Yeah.
they just, I mean, that whole mission there is just so amazing.
It
So we
is.
get to hear things like that, and we're learning, like Operation Song is another one of my favorites, based out of Nashville. They basically, you get assigned to a songwriter. You do a Zoom call if you're not local, and you have a conversation, and you tell your story through a song. And by
Wow.
2 hour conversation, an hour later, I have a song by a professional songwriter.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I have songwriting credit to my name because both of our names are put on it. And it's so therapeutic, and it's amazing because you get to tell your story, and then you get to
Yeah.
turn it into a song. And my co-host Keith right now, he did it, and he wrote a song for his wife, and so he had the
Aw.
songwriter on the phone on Zoom when he played it for his wife. And so it was a great little moment they all got to share. So it's just it's that kind of thing that we're finding organizations like that are just awesome.
That's
And of course you have
amazing.
your traditional transition ones too that are doing great work. And we're very proud of the fact that people want to come on the show, and they want to talk to us about what they're trying to do to help our community.
Yeah. Oh gosh. So Veterans Last Patrol, absolutely an amazing organization. You know what I am just very sad about is the veterans who pass with nobody to attend their funeral. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. It seems to happen more and more, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm more involved in the military community now, and but how sad is that? And thank goodness for Veterans Last Patrol, that there are people out there that will attend. I see I subscribe to a bunch of VA notices and stuff, and I see these things come out, and I'm like, darn, I wish I could travel to wherever that is because I would want to be there.
Yep.
So it's just very, very sad that that happens. But yeah, two greater, and I didn't know about Operation Song. That is amazing. That very cool.
It's awesome, and you can also use them as a fundraising opportunity for your organization. So they'll come in and do like a concert.
Oh,
Now
nice.
you're going to have to help with travel expenses and stuff like that, but you sell tickets to this concert event. They
Wow.
spend all day working with the veterans writing these songs, and then that night they perform them. And I was like, that's just a cool idea for fundraising.
Wow,
So,
that is amazing. That's it. We might have to talk later about that. That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what would you tell entrepreneurs out there or people that are transitioning, just making that transformation in their life, taking on that next adventure? What advice would you give them? Things to avoid or things to look out for. What would you tell them?
Uh, really, my biggest thing is enjoy the ride. And everybody sets their goals and what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, and things like that. So I did the Boots to Business. I did the second program through Mississippi State. And I built the whole business plan for the podcast, and I've been exercising it and working it. But
Good.
since I have a regular 9 to 5 job, I haven't I'm not relying on it for food. So
Right.
I don't work it as much as I probably should. But I'm enjoying the entire process, and
Good.
so that's one thing that I would recommend that everybody does, is because the more you talk to entrepreneurs, especially ones who are, at the part of maybe retiring,
Mm.
it's like a child to them. They
It is.
raised this
Oh,
child,
yes.
they birthed it, they raised it, and then they're going to potentially sell it, and it's been a huge part of their life. So enjoy that whole process and what goes
Yeah.
into it. And there's going to be peaks and valleys like anything else, right? But enjoy it, and build a solid plan and work that plan.
Highs and lows, that's for sure. I mean, I think about, and I had my daughter, and she's been my world. But when I started this business, it is truly a baby. It goes through
Mhm.
infancy, toddler stages. I think I'm in the teenage years at the moment, which which is a little but it really is like a baby. And when people have to think about exiting their business, it can be very traumatic and whatnot. So yeah, just that whole transition, another transformation in their life. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I don't plan to do that for many, many, many years. So don't have to worry about it for now. But so, what is maybe a pitfall that you see veterans take as they're transitioning out that you want to tell people about, or people trying to create a business? What do you see as some, like, the hole in the ground that they miss every time and that they pay that dummy tax for? What would you say?
For transition, it's definitely time.
Yeah.
You don't start early enough. And now, granted, there's all kinds of reasons why you don't.
Right.
Either you didn't know your chain of command's working until the last day. I mean, that could be a million different reasons. But
Yeah.
start early. The earlier you can start, the more you can spread things out, the more you can accomplish.
Yeah.
And you don't have to freak out about things if you have time under your belt.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to starting a business, um, if it's the first time you've done it, and this kind of applies to transition too, and I did a talk on this, is you need to provide yourself a little bit of grace. You need to understand that if you've
Yeah.
never started a business before, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, it
Right.
doesn't matter how many classes you take, how many things you do, it's still something new. You're
It
going to
is.
make mistakes. You're going to do things that are wrong, and so give yourself grace, and understand that it is a learning curve, and learn from those mistakes and grow, because, you know, whether you want to admit it or not, our greatest learning comes through failure,
Absolutely.
and, it's just give yourself grace.
Yeah, and it's more about how you get back up, right? And
Yep.
the not let that failure, learn from it, and not let that failure take you down. But yeah, it's like being, you first went into the military. I mean, I didn't know anything about the Navy when I first went into the military. I quickly learned, but through that, and there were plenty of failures in all of that. I'm sure I failed a few PTs in my time, but was not my thing. But yeah, just learn from that and grow from it. So, well, awesome. Well, Shawn, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Is there any last parting words you'd like to give our listeners for your entrepreneurial journey?
I would say, you're going to build your plan, you're going to work your plan, but
Yeah,
also understand that sometimes you got to be flexible with your plan.
yeah,
We
for sure.
we started this podcast as a passion project. We turned it into an LLC, and now we've decided to turn it into a 501c. And to me, that's it's a logical progression for what we want to accomplish.
Sure.
Plus, it's now going to provide us that opportunity where the organization can outlive us. It can continue to educate the
Nice.
transitioning service members, and that excites me. You know, if
The
we can create
legacy,
something
right?
that,
You're leaving a legacy. Yeah.
yeah, and if it continue to help people, I mean, how cool is that? It's just, it's
Absolutely.
one of those things that, to me, it I don't know, it just makes you feel good. But
Well,
you know,
that makes me think of another question though. Where do you see? So now you're going to turn it into a legacy. What's your like big? They call them, big, hairy, audacious goals. What is your big goal for Vet SOS?
so our number one thing right now that we're working towards is creating an online platform where every veteran and veteran spouse can tell their transition story.
Nice,
And we want it to be sortable by every possible demographic you can imagine, as well as every psychographic you can imagine. So you
nice.
can not only sort by race, sex, gender, whatever, service, but you're
Right.
also going to be able to sort by suicidal ideations,
Okay.
um,
Like
alcoholism, drug
keywords kind of
abuse,
thing.
homelessness. Yeah, I want to.
Nice.
What I'm looking at is like a pull down menu where you can
Yeah,
go through and you can just click the different things and apply these filters,
that's
and all
amazing.
these videos will pop up that have to deal with the thing you're looking for. So the reason we want to do that is the number one thing we hear is, I thought I was the only one. We want to be able
Right.
to show veterans and spouses that they're not the only one. A lot of us struggle with things,
Yeah.
and we found ways to get through it. And hopefully we'll be able to help a lot of people that way. And that's really the next big thing that we're working on for Vet SOS.
That's amazing. Why do you, I mean, I know that's true. Why do you think that is, that we get out of the military, and or as military spouses, we think we're the only ones going through that process? I mean, there are millions of us out here. Like why do we think, is it because we're part of a bigger team, do you think, in the military, and we come out and now we're all ourselves and it's a hard transition? Why do you think we struggle so much in reaching out and finding these resources?
The only thing I keep thinking is that it has to do with the fact that we're trained to be strong.
Yeah.
They tear us down, they build us back up. We
Yeah.
spend our entire careers in the military as part of teams,
Right.
but for some reason we still struggle with asking for help.
Yeah.
Um, and and we try to accomplish everything on our own. And
True.
I mean, you can call it pride, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but could it be the fact that the military made us who we are, and now when we need it the most we're having trouble with it? I mean, to me that's a possibility.
Yeah, very
um,
true.
and then you can get into the suicide problem we have with veterans, and so on and so forth. And we're hoping that this website, we're hoping that we're going to be able to touch people that we never even know we touched.
Right.
People that at 2 a.m. with that gun in their hand happen to click on a video that changes their projection. That type of thing is the
Yeah.
impact that we'd love to have. And what you want to talk about, long pole in the tent, we could take this international. With the
Whoa.
why can't the Canadian military tell their transition stories, the British military? Then, because they all go through the same problems we
Same
do.
thing. Yeah.
Many of them served side by side with us in a 20-year war. Why not
Right.
capture all their stories and try to help veterans as a whole around the world?
Absolutely. No, I can definitely relate to wanting to help veterans. As part of our mission at Talents Ascend is to have an employment arm that helps them, not, prohibits them from being who they are. So that's awesome. That is an amazing goal. So listeners, plug in now, because Vet SOS is going places. So we'll look forward to that, Shawn. So what platforms are you on? Tell the listeners what platforms you're on. We're going to share all your contact information and whatnot when we publish. But just where can they find you?
The easiest way to get to everything is through the website, vetsospodcast.com. You can get to all our social media. We're on all the social media platforms. You can get to all the podcast platforms through there, and you can get to YouTube through there. So if you want to watch our videos, or if you just want to listen to them, you can do both.
Nice.
And we got 3 shows out right now, and we're looking at 2 more next year. So we can have 5 days a week of new content. We're really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, Shawn, best of just luck is not a thing. You have a gift. Totally believe that Travis found the right person for Vet SOS. So very, very happy for you. Love what you're doing. So thank you so much. And thanks for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for what you do. I mean, you have an amazing platform, and you guys just continue to keep growing that and reaching more. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.